Earlier in the day, White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow was saying negotiations are coming down to, in his words, short strokes. Dow Industrial Average up 0.6%. Similar gain now for the S&P and the NASDAQ Composite. In terms of eco data, retail sales rebounded slightly more than forecast last month with a gain of 0.3%. That's a month-over-month reading. However, the Fed reported a drop in manufacturing output. Twitter is making some exceptions to its recent ban on all political advertising. The company will allow cause-based ads for some economic, environmental, and social issues. Twitter shares right now up by more than 1%. U.S. 10-year Treasury right now with a yield of 1.82%. You're caught up on markets. Let's get back to Bloomberg Business Week.
All right, Doug, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week on this Friday. I'm Carol Massar along with Jason Kelly, and this is Bloomberg Radio.
Don't you know, step by step, you will love.
I bet this is on our playlist. She's looking at me like you are one crazy woman.
I bet it could be on Sean Donnan's playlist.
I think it's probably on
He's
Sean
got a wide-ranging, sort of musical taste. But here's the thing. If we were to measure step by step, we're talking about an ultra-marathon here. When we talk about the trade war. Let's get into it. Christina Lindblad here with us in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio. She is, of course, Business Week's global economics editor. And senior trade reporter Sean Donnan, the aforementioned Sean Donnan, he's down in Washington with us. We're talking about the latest and the greatest. So, Sean, bring us up to date. What do we know today here at 2:49 p.m. on Friday? Because whatever we knew a couple hours ago, I'm sure is probably out of date.
Okay, so we got that ultra marathon, and Jason, I think it's very good of you to sign up to do it with me. Carol's going to cheer us on.
I'll give you water, okay?
You'll give me water? I think Christina is already cheering us on. So look, I mean, Donald Trump made this decision that he was going to take on China, this ultra marathon. This is the ultimate test of any president when it comes to economics and trade. This is the ultimate challenge. And what he did a month ago was he split it into sections, right? He said, actually, I'm going to do a whole bunch of 5Ks. And we're getting to the point where we are, kind of coming to maybe the end of the first 5K, and that is this phase one deal that he announced a month ago, October 11th, with Liu He, the vice premier of the People's Republic of China, in the Oval Office. And at the time, he said, we got this all sorted out. It'll just take us 3 to 5 weeks to paper it. Well, we're at that point now where they're trying to finish that papering, putting this down into hard writing. We're told that Ambassador Robert Lighthizer, the U.S. Trade Representative, and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin are getting on the phone today. We're told it hasn't happened yet, but that they're going to get on the phone today with Liu He, and they're going to do some more negotiating, and hopefully they get close to something.
All right, so Christina, come on in on this. Sean saying the first, maybe it's a 5K, that's the first leg. How long is this race?
Well, one thing is the finish line keeps, receding into the future.
Keep adding another leg, it feels like, right?
We've been, in previous times, on the verge of important deals. Actually, some of them which might have had bigger concessions, bigger wins, but as the White House, wants it now to be breaking it up into smaller bits. We'll have to see in the end what is in there. But some of the terms that are being discussed, which is $50 billion in agricultural purchases from China, that's a big deal. Obviously, it wouldn't get there right away, but it's more than twice the level that prevailed before this all started.
And so, Sean, as you think about some of these contours, and I highly recommend your story in the magazine this week because it really sort of lays out what has happened, just as you described to us at the beginning of this conversation, over time. What has been lost in all of this, I guess? What has fallen by the wayside?
Well, I think the most important thing to remember here is the bar that President Trump set coming into office and the bar that we're going to hit now. And the bar that he set when he came into office was, I'm going to rewire the economic relationship with China, and I'm going to address all of these wrongs that China has committed over decades, really, and that every other American president has let them get away with. And I'm going to fix all that. And the bar where we are now is, yes, yes, Christina's right. There is this goal to have $40 to $50 billion in agricultural purchases, and that would be more than twice what the Chinese were purchasing in 2017. But that's in some ways just making up for the loss of exports that we've had over the past 2 years. There's going to be some intellectual property commitments, some commitments to kind of clamp down on theft of IP. And that's kind of it from the Chinese. We'll get a vague agreement on currency manipulation and a few other things. But all of the hard issues, all of the stuff that you really need to tackle if you want to rewire that relationship, like industrial subsidies, the cheap loans and electricity and all of the other ways that the Chinese state helps Chinese companies compete internationally. None of that is being addressed in this, and that all comes later. And that's the part of the marathon, that's the kind of heartbreak hill of the marathon.
Yeah, that's when it gets really, really tough. So, Christina, I think about, you and your team, your global economics team, along with Sean, what are the stories that you want everybody to kind of be going after? What is the focal points going forward after we get maybe through this initial leg?
Well, I don't want to tell anyone what stories. No, just kidding.
No, but what are the things?
Don't tip your hand too much there, Lindblad.
But I think, like Sean says, we get into the more difficult stuff. Like we see the ag, and that's a big number, but there's a lot of important issues still out there.
I didn't mean to imply that was the be-all and end-all, because it certainly, as Sean indicated, he raised the bar. It was the president who raised the bar. So to me, it will be fascinating to see what comes next, if something comes next, and that's a big if, because there have been questions about whether the Chinese feel like they need to negotiate with a president who's facing re-election, who is fighting an impeachment process. But how do you enforce all those other bits that we want, which is the subsidies, the state help, and like Sean indicated, there are myriad ways in which Beijing supports its national champions. That would be precedent-setting in many ways.
To get them to change their ways, right, in terms of supporting their industries and so on.
Sean, last question for you. USMCA, give us the status report.
We would call that USMCA.
USMCA is what Carol calls it.
USMCA?
Yeah, it just rolls off your tongue.
So catchy.
Yeah, no, up in Canada they call it CUSMA, and down in Mexico they call it MUSCA. We are in a slightly better place for USMCA, or as I call it, NAFTA 2.0, than we were at the beginning of the week. Nancy Pelosi this week signaled that a vote on this was imminent, and that's really interesting. She also has indicated that some big labor groups like the AFL-CIO may be willing to come on board, which would really be game-changing in terms of trade agreements. And Donald Trump and his trade negotiators, if that all happens, should get a lot of credit for, in some ways, rewriting the politics of NAFTA. This was a deal that Donald Trump campaigned against. And NAFTA was the worst trade agreement in the world, and now he's turned it into the greatest. Kind of interesting transformation there. But it's real, and we need to recognize it.
All right, we are going to leave it there. Thank you both so much. Sean Donnan, senior trade reporter, joining us from Washington. Check out his story in this week's issue of Bloomberg Business Week. And Business Week global economics editor Christina Lindblad as well. USMCA.
Yeah,
I like the different variations depending on the country. That's a new wrinkle.
Sometimes it's just a big trade agreement. This is Bloomberg.
Next. Nah. Nope. Boring. If you skip through loads of your TV channels, why are you paying loads of money for them? With TalkTalk TV and Faster Fibre, you can access the nation's favourite TV shows, a world of films and sport, live and on demand, all for £25.95 a month for 18 months. And if you're quick, you'll even get a year of Amazon Prime on us. Search TalkTalk TV. TalkTalk. For everyone. Offer ends 5th of December, subject to availability. T's and C's apply.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition. For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked bread to your door.
And for the barista who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
I wish me a Merry Christmas. I wish me a Merry Christmas. I wish me a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Don't forget yourself this Christmas. Get 90 gig of data for the price of 30 on the stunning Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus. Search O2 Christmas deals.
O2 refresh credit by Telefonica UK Limited. Contract eligibility and terms apply.
Along the goal line, Martin scores! It takes it home!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
In a move, and a shot, they score!
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Get your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back, deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters in New York, I'm Doug Krisner. It's now 3 p.m. on Wall Street. Elevated equity market on a lot of talk about the U.S. and China being close to a partial trade deal. Earlier, White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow was saying negotiations were coming down to, in his words, short strokes. And we also heard from Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross. He was telling Fox Business, the devil is always in the details, and we're down to the last details now. So the major benchmarks extending record highs. The S&P is on track for its sixth weekly gain in a row. That would be the longest winning streak in about 2 years. Right now, the S&P is higher by more than 0.6%. Dow better by 0.7%. NASDAQ Composite is up about 0.6%. Now, away from trade, the day's economic news was kind of mixed. Retail sales rebounded slightly more than forecast last month. A gain of 0.3%. That's month over month. However, the Fed reported a drop in manufacturing output. Net effect in the bond market, U.S. 10-year Treasury right now is yielding 1.83%. The Fed is saying continued low interest rates could dent U.S. bank profits and push bankers into riskier behavior, and that might threaten the nation's financial stability. Twitter higher after the company said it will make some exceptions to its recent ban on political ads. The company will allow cause-based ads for some economic, environmental, and social issues. WeWork is drawing scrutiny from the SEC over whether the company violated rules in the run-up to its failed IPO. SoftBank has quietly completed an initial money-raising push for its second technology fund. We're being told that the company has raised roughly $2 billion, but that's a fraction of the targeted $108 billion from SoftBank. Applied Materials shares pushing higher by about 0.9%. That's after the company boosted its sales forecast, this for the equipment used to make computer chips. Weaker dollar right now and a weaker Japanese yen at 108.83. Meantime, the offshore Chinese yuan stronger by 0.2%. I'm Doug Krisner. That's the Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
I love it when Carol Masser tries to signal me, and then we end up high-fiving, and it's like, just don't say anything. Okay, good job. All right, here we are. We're back.
Should we talk a little bit of economics?
Business Week Economics? Business Week Economics. It's that time. It's the top of the three.
She walked in, and she's like, man,
it's Friday.
Exhausted.
Yeah.
Bond reporter at Bloomberg News. What do you have to be exhausted about?
You know, it feels like this market is a bit stuck. You know, like every day is starting to feel a bit like Groundhog Day. You know, we kind of feels like the 10-year peaked at 195. We're now back to around 182, and we don't really have anything new to move on. And what's interesting is what I'm hearing from people on the street is the only way we're going to break out of this is if we actually do get this phase one deal signed.
Will we go above 2% on the 10?
Well, that's the interesting thing. It's not just a phase one deal being signed. It's also people are looking for the rollback of the tariffs that went into effect on September 1st, because that's really what's hampering, you know, business confidence and sentiment here is those tariffs. And so it just, you know, I think the market feels a little bit tired here right now, and I think it's just getting pulled in a lot of different directions, and we need clarity.
All right, you take a 2-minute nap. It's going to bring you back.
Power nap.
Power nap. We're going to bring in Andrew Husby. He's U.S. economist with Bloomberg Economics, our team here at Bloomberg. He's in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio along with Alex. We did get some economic news, though, today, including retail sales, which is always an important one, right? We talk about how important the consumer is to the economy, but tell us what stood out for you.
Sure. Well, I'd say that one of the things we're monitoring most closely is the consumer, not because it's particularly weak right now, but because it's really the only thing that is strong.
It's the game in town.
It is the only game in town. So you look at things like investment, you know, it's weak, trade, risks there, but the consumer has been really strong, second quarter, third quarter. But now what we're seeing stepping into the fourth quarter, while the result today was a bit stronger than expectations on the headline, what you saw beneath that was a step down in some of the core categories, step down in discretionary categories, and that's a bit of a negative omen for the holiday shopping season. So what it does do is it starts to mechanically lower fourth quarter growth estimates.
This was data for October, right?
This was data for October.
Remind me what the mindset was in October in terms of what was going on. Like, we obviously were talking trade continuing. What else were some of like? I'm trying to think of some of the
it felt like
themes.
we were feeling a little bit better
Right.
about the world than we were in September. And was that reflected or no, Andrew?
It was, sentiment has held up reasonably well. The labor market's held up well, but there's some sense, maybe along with businesses pausing, you know, not outright, you know, saying, hey, the sky's falling, something like that. But what they're saying is, okay, decisions we might be otherwise have made, let's just hold off a bit, see how the environment plays out, and then we can decide once these other elements that we're talking about
kind of wait
clear
and see,
up. Yeah,
right? We just
absolutely.
want some clarity.
Well, and that's, I think, exactly what the bond market's reflecting now is this wait-and-see standpoint. And look, like Fed funds futures, Fed expectations, there's no cuts priced in the near term. There's no hikes priced in the near term.
Even December?
Nothing's priced. So, you know, I think that everyone's just kind of stuck here and they're waiting, you know, and you have all these opposing forces. It's like before we came in, there was a headline about Trump talking about middle-class tax cuts.
Right.
And, okay, well, great if we get another tax cut. That's going to be more deficit spending, by the way. But, you know, then you have the opposing force of potentially no deal with China and tariffs, you know, and then the threat of more tariffs going into effect, which is going to eventually weigh on the consumer, which Andrew can probably speak to. So it's like, what do you do here? Like, how do you take this information? How do you evaluate it and then apply it to where you think the market's going to go?
Yeah, I do wonder if, Andrew, if we're starting to see once again, like as Jason said, we were feeling pretty optimistic, you know, in October about kind of what was going on. But I do wonder if we're starting to see any kind of chipping away at the strength of the consumer, or is it just too early? This is 1 month's data, and let's wait and see. It's holiday. I started doing some holiday shopping already. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's a bit early. I think you know, given the holiday season really kicks off this month and into December, it's the issue is, you know, you look at some other estimates out there for fourth quarter growth. The Atlanta Fed's estimate, which gets a lot of play, that's down to 0.3%. That's, if that comes through in the fourth quarter, that'd be a pretty weak result and well below what the Fed is looking for. So, but at the moment, you saw the market didn't really react much off these numbers, looking at them too weekly. So I think the perception is that you're looking at a one-off maybe for now, but it's something really to monitor closely.
Alex Harris is so excited she's dropping her pen.
I dropped my pen.
After she lectured me about using a pen.
Was she throwing it?
No, she was dropping. It was a drop.
It was a drop.
It was a drop. I've seen her throw. That's a drop.
Have you really?
That's a drop. All right, so what's the weekend plan? You going to do some baking?
Possibly.
Yeah.
We're going to see Princess Bride tomorrow night.
Oh, my goodness.
King's Theater in Brooklyn.
Come on.
So excited.
Are you kidding me?
Because the actor who played Wesley, Gary Ells, he's going to be there.
Good Lord.
So, yeah, I get to hear him speak a little bit about the movie.
Can you do a full review of that for us next week?
We did a Princess Bride reference. Where was it? One of our panels.
Yeah, mostly
the retail. That's right, the retail one.
Have you read his book?
I haven't, but I heard it was actually quite good.
It's a fantastic book. It's behind the scenes.
I have the book. I bought it on your recommendation.
It is outstanding.
Carol, did you read it?
Not yet. I gave it to my husband, actually.
Boy.
Just. So, Andrew, come on in. We're just going to ignore these.
What's your weekend plan, Andrew? What do you got going on?
I may show up in the November retail sales results. I've got some home improvements to do, so that may show up there.
I was like, wait, you're doing research over the weekend?
It's like if you say you're going to print out a bunch of economic reports, that will mean you are truly a member of the Bloomberg Economics team.
I know.
So he's really.
Hey, honey, let's sit around the table and let's talk about these statistics.
Hey, guys, look at this on page 16. This is amazing.
Your discretionary spending versus what the national average is.
Let's break that down.
I love you, honey, but you're out of here.
All right. Well, we appreciate your contribution to the economy. Can't wait for your movie review. Thank you both so much.
What are you doing, Jason Kelly, this weekend?
Lacrosse.
Lacrosse.
Lacrosse. Yeah, last weekend of lacrosse tournaments for the fall. Yeah.
Aww.
So out to Long Island. So tomorrow and Sunday. Very exciting. What are you up to?
I'm going to get some sleep.
Yeah, good.
I'm so happy to be home.
I know.
My own little bed, my own little down comforter and pillows.
Yeah. You may have a little fire.
Maybe a little fire.
All right, good. Scout sort of like cuddling up.
Scout was already, cuddling next to me.
So happy to see you.
She's like, who are you?
All right, that's great. Alex Harris, bond reporter for Bloomberg here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. Andrew Husby is U.S. economist for Bloomberg.
It's only 3:09 and we're already getting a little wacky here.
A little bit, and we've got more wackiness ahead, that's for sure.
All right.
In the meantime,
let's get a check on world and national news headlines. Let's get to Bob Moon. Hey, Bob.
It is sure feeling like a Friday, isn't it? Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee remain unwavering in their defense of President Trump's political maneuvering in Ukraine as they question former Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch, who Trump pushed out of her post. Live with the latest now, Bloomberg's Irv Chapman on Capitol Hill. Irv.
Bob, Congressman Chris Stewart said the Ukraine investigation is absolute nonsense, as was the charge of collusion with Russian interference.
The Speaker announced that the President would indeed be impeached and removed for office for bribery. Do you have any information regarding the President of the United States accepting any bribes? No. Do you have any information regarding any criminal activity that the President of the United States has been involved with at all? No.
The ambassador also said the shipment of anti-tank missiles to Ukraine was a good sign of American backing, but the 55-day delay in sending the aid hurt American credibility. Bob?
Irv, the man who was a conduit between the Trump campaign and WikiLeaks, got caught up in his own lies today when a federal court jury in Washington found him guilty in a case that grew out of Robert Mueller's investigation. Roger Stone was convicted of all 7 counts in a federal indictment, including lying to Congress, tampering with a witness, and obstructing the House investigation into whether the Trump campaign coordinated with Russia. Stone is the 6th Trump aide or advisor to be convicted of charges in the investigation that Trump continues to dismiss as a witch hunt. President Trump is dangling the prospect of a middle-income tax cut in front of voters again after abandoning the idea after last year's midterm elections. He now says it's contingent on a Republican victory next year in the House. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter. I'm Bob Moon.
You can't be the only one who spends time examining angles.
This sort of mini deal, what would it look like?
Considering possibilities.
From a credit perspective, this is good news.
Planning for eventualities.
This company really has to get back on a growth track.
You're right. The others are here.
General Electric is such an interesting story.
Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern. On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the Lingo.
GOAT, GOAT, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Join us in New York City on November 21st as Bloomberg Pursuits convenes the second annual The Year Ahead Luxury. Speakers include Jennifer Hyman, CEO Rent the Runway, Alessandro Bogliolo, CEO Tiffany & Company, Robert A.M. Stern, renowned architect. Supporting sponsor, Diamond Producers Association. Participating sponsor, St. Regis Hotels and Resorts. For more information, go to BloombergLive.com/TYA Luxury. Invitation code RADIO.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Let me ask you, when do you believe you get the best deals? Black Friday? Why wait? The best deals are now at Carphone Warehouse. Save an amazing 60 pounds on the Samsung Galaxy A40, just $14.99 a month. How about a Vodafone SIM-only deal for an incredible 15 pounds a month with 10 gig of data? Get great deals today without the wait at Carphone Warehouse. Samsung A40 on select 24-month contracts. SIM Vodafone on select 18-month contracts. T's and C's apply. Visit website for more details.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Hey NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you have unlimited access to every team and every game in the league. Listen live as it happens or on demand. Anytime, anywhere. All season long. Search NFL today.
What if, instead of browsing the World Wide Web, we were all browsing GopherNet?
Gopher is easy to navigate and easy to browse.
Because in the early 90s,
Gopher was taking off faster.
Until they made one crucial mistake.
At that point, Gopher traffic on the internet dropped off.
Find out why open source won the battle for the internet next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR. You can subscribe to the TED Radio Hour on TuneIn.
Hey, can't watch the big NBA game because your life's just too busy? I've got some news for you. TuneIn Premium is the answer to all your problems. Hear every home and away game live or on demand everywhere you go. Just search NBA to listen.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen now to ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
At 17 past the hour, that gives us 43 minutes to go in today's trading session. Right now, equity prices are elevated. We are at record levels, and if the S&P holds here, we could be on track for the 6th straight weekly gain. That would be the longest winning streak in about 2 years. Let's get to the Bloomberg Macro Squawk Desk. Bill Maloney is looking at price action in markets. Hey, Bill.
And thanks, Doug. Main U.S. average is climbing today from the start on trade optimism. Dow's currently up 198 points. S&P's gained 20, while NASDAQ rises by 49. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.83%. Small caps are higher by 5 points. And 9 of the main 11 S&P sectors are also trading higher, led by gains in healthcare and technology. Only consumer staples and materials fell. Nasdaq biotechs rise 48 points. Transports climb 22. Semis gain 11 points. And the VIX is down by 7%. Leaders to the upside in the Dow, UNH, Pfizer, and J&J, while Disney and Walmart led to the downside. After earnings, Applied Materials gained 9%, while NVIDIA fell 2.6%. And in other news, healthcare stocks rallied today. Evercore said that Elizabeth Warren's new Medicare plan looks similar to Biden's. UNH is up 5.7%, while Humana hit a new 52-week high. Live from the First Breaking News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Doug.
All right, Bill, thanks. And we had the Fed today saying continued low interest rates could dent U.S. bank profits and push bankers into riskier behavior, and that might threaten the nation's financial stability. 10-year Treasury right now yielding 1.83%. Let's get back to Bloomberg Business Week.
Doug, thanks a lot. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week right here on Bloomberg Radio.
Get it started. Get it started. Get it started. Let's get it started.
Startups with at least one female founder, well, they raised 21% more in venture capital funding than companies with all-male teams. This is according to a study released this fall by the Kauffman Fellows Research Center. So let's talk about that in particular.
It's kind of a surprising stat.
You're surprised, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah.
Just given all the other really dismal news for women in the startup world.
Well, there is some dismal. There is some downside. And we'll get to that in a moment. Let's talk about this, though, and really early stage VC investing with someone who knows an awful lot about it. Alexa Von Tobel is founder of LearnVest. She's also founder and managing partner at Inspired Capital, and she joins us, well known to the Bloomberg audience, joining us on the phone here in New York City. Alexa, good to have you here with Jason and myself on this Friday. Tell us a little bit about just a reminder of what you guys are doing at Inspired, and tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in the VC world.
Well, first, thank you guys so much. So we have a brand new firm here, headquartered in New York City, but investing around the country, called Inspired Capital. We're a $200 million firm. And what makes us a little bit different is that all of our investors have also been operators. So people like Penny Pritzker, who has built and scaled 6 companies after, helping put Obama in the White House and being Secretary of Commerce, and to other investors like the co-founder of Paperless Post. So kind of a fresh new face to venture here in New York City.
And so as you look at the sort of competitive landscape across venture, this is a market, it feels like, here in New York especially, that has matured in a very positive way and expanded in a positive way. What do you see across the landscape in terms of the sort of types of money that's out there chasing deals?
So first, as you can imagine, there's an abundance of capital out there chasing deals. We get excited, again, because we're headquartered in New York. There's $1 here to $12 in the Valley. So for the entrepreneurs that are here, we're reminding them not to get on planes and fly west. You have more capital that's constantly standing up in New York City. The other thing I think that really sets us apart is that every dollar is as green as the next until it's not, because it actually comes with the sort of people who've been in the seats. We know how to build companies. It is an expertise for us. I sold LearnVest for a few $100 million to Northwestern Mutual. We, as a group of team members, have literally held the reins in our hands. So we know how to build companies, scale them, sell them. And I think that really does set us apart, because if you can help an individual save time in those early executions, it's incredibly valuable.
Well, it's interesting. As Jason said, he was surprised with the line I read about, some optimism in terms of female founders at startups, but there's still so many hurdles. Another stat I came across was only about 22% of all startups are founded by at least one woman, or by one woman, and teams made up of just women have the hardest time raising money, especially if they run what are considered gender neutral businesses. So, you do see like money going into, female founded businesses that are kind of female, oriented versus when they're just playing with everybody else. It's harder. I mean, are things changing? What are you seeing on that front?
Well, so first, I think one thing that's amazing, so our firm, again, Inspired Capital, $200 million. We invest in seed and Series A companies of all shapes and sizes. So we're a generalist fund. We'll look at every category. One thing that I think is pretty powerful is the world's just fundamentally changed. The entrepreneurs of tomorrow are looking for modern money, right? The entrepreneurs of tomorrow, if you look at YC this year, it was 50-50 male, female. And as you think about that, the stats are pretty abysmal, about 2.6% or 2.9% based on who you quote, of capital has a female partner. Our firm just looks modern. We are a modern firm. We focus on all businesses. We back men and female founders. But I think just the fact that we came to the gate as a very modern firm, we span generations, we've been investors, we've been operators, we know our way around that early startup scene because we're the people who, candidly, we helped build the fabric of the New York City tech ecosystem.
Right.
For the last 15 years. We're here to help entrepreneurs save a lot of time and energy.
All right. Going to leave it on that note. Alexa, thank you so much. Alexa Von Tobel, founder of LearnVest, founder and managing partner of Inspired Capital, joining us on the phone from New York City. And interesting in a day when we talked a little bit earlier about SoftBank, right? And their Vision Fund starting a lot smaller than their first fund.
Right. And the world, as you said, close to the top of the show, is still awash in private capital in a lot of ways. We talk a lot about that from the private equity side, from the venture capital side, from the growth equity side, people looking for returns in a world that is still very low yield, clearly in some cases, trillions in negative yielding securities when you think about the fixed income market. So, and yet, I hear some optimism in Alexa's voice, but there's still some pretty massive gender gaps when it comes to the tech world.
Absolutely.
I was certainly a little more optimistic coming out of our broadcast at Stanford about some of the up-and-coming entrepreneurs and investors.
But I think you're in a special place there to some extent. But I also go back to, and you and I have talked about this, that comment that Susan Line made, and, she runs BBG Ventures, co-founder of that, or founder of that, and saying that we need kind of a business started by a woman that kind of goes big on the scale of an Apple or Google because people will follow the money. That's what it ultimately comes out to. And so, but it's hard for women if they don't get the chance with startup money to get there. You're listening to Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks are extending their gains in the final hour with the major averages at record highs. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 201, the S&P 500 up 20, the Nasdaq Composite is up 51. The Supreme Court has agreed to hear Google's appeal in a multi-billion-dollar copyright case. Oracle says Google owes it nearly $9 billion for improperly using its copyrighted code in the Android operating system. A lower court ruled that Google violated Oracle's copyrights. For the second time this year, Hulu is raising prices for its online TV bundle. The price for Hulu with live TV will rise by $10 next month to $55 a month. It follows a $5 hike in February. With McDonald's in the middle of a 3-month test of Beyond Meat burgers in Canada, a William Blair analyst says he expects the program to expand. He says it could lead to a phased rollout by the fast food chain globally. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Hey, it's me, your cell phone. We need to talk about something serious. I know you love me. I know you like using me wherever you are, but I feel like this isn't working out when you're driving. I know you may think that it's possible to focus both on me and the road, but I just don't feel the same way. I think we should spend time away from each other when you're driving. It's for the best.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Are you curious what others are listening to on TuneIn? Head to the trending section under Browse to see the most popular stations and podcasts among TuneIn listeners right now. Check it out. You might just discover something new for yourself.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard. Somebody stays on his feet and scores us down.
The top of the Big 12 is at stake. Reigning champion Oklahoma travels to Waco, Texas to take on the surprising undefeated Baylor Bears. The action kicks off this Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Far wing elevates, triple bucket. The roar of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut it.
To the sideline, the man fleet for three.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right block.
NBA Today to start listening.
From ESPN and the award-winning producers of The Sterling Affairs comes the latest season of 30 for 30 podcasts. 4 brand new stories of espionage.
He wanted this team to be the Barcelona of women's basketball.
Resilience.
I started to scream. I tried to get away.
Corruption.
It's the culture of win at all costs.
And rebirth.
How will we ever rebuild it?
30 for 30 podcasts, season 6. Listen now to 30 for 30 podcasts on TuneIn.
The good snap, the ball put down, the right-footed kick is up, it's got the distance, it's accurate enough, it is good! The handoff to Carson, slithers through the crease between the guard and the center.
NFL fans, the action continues this weekend on TuneIn Premium. This Sunday, TuneIn has every NFL football game starting with the New York Jets at the Washington Redskins at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern, and closing out Sunday night with the Bears at the Los Angeles Rams at 8:20 p.m. Eastern. At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen now to ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
Along the goal line, scores! It takes it home!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
A move, and a shot, they score!
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Yes, it is Bloomberg Business Week with Diva Jason Kelly and Carol Masser.
non-diva Carol Massey. Yeah, I got that. She's not a diva, but she was in L.A. Amanda Gordon is here. She's going to bring us up to speed on how money's being raised and given away out there. We're also going to get Dave Wilson's chart of the day. But
non-diva
first,
too.
No. Non-diva. Total non-diva. Doug Krisner could go either way.
Hey, come on.
He's got some business flash. Hey, Doug.
Hey, so we've got the Dutch biotech firm QIAGEN exploring some options here after several indications of interest. U.S. shares in QIAGEN right now have been halted. If you take a step back and look at the overall equity market, we remain at elevated levels, technically in record territory, although slightly off the best levels of the day. This would be on a closing basis for record highs in the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ. A lot of optimism that we're going to get some partial trade deal at some point. Today we heard from White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow. He said negotiations were coming down to short strokes. And then Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross told Fox Business, the devil is always in the details, and we're down to the last details now. Industrial average better by 0.6%. S&P 500 higher by 0.5%. Similar gain now for the NASDAQ composite. Mixed eco data for the U.S. retail sales rebound slightly last month, a gain month over month of 0.3%. But the Fed reported a drop in manufacturing. That could be a little troubling. But really, when you consider the context of the U.S.-China trade war, not surprising. Another point on the Fed, a special report today issued by the Fed highlighted continued low interest rates, possibly denting U.S. bank profits and then pushing bankers into riskier behavior, and that might in turn threaten the nation's financial stability. U.S. 10-year Treasury, last quoted in New York at a yield of 1.83. That's a look at markets. Back to you on Bloomberg Business Week.
All right, Doug Krisner, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. A headline crossing the Bloomberg terminal. T-Mobile CEO John Legere isn't taking the WeWork CEO job. That's been floated out there in the last couple of weeks or so. This is according to CNBC, so those WeWork headlines continuing to cross. This is Bloomberg Radio.
See the sadness or euphoria.
Little Billy Joel deep cut there?
Something like that.
One of the best concerts to go see Billy Joel in the
Madison Square Garden?
Just
unbelievable.
Incredible.
And if I recall correctly, when I saw him there, he played this song. I could be wrong.
What's the song?
Sadness or Euphoria.
It's one of my favorite songs. The lyrics are just incredible.
Yeah,
beautiful.
absolutely.
He did not play it when I saw him. Go on.
The magic word euphoria here, because that's what, at least to some investors, has been missing from the stock market going all the way back to March 2009. We were talking about this earlier. It's been sort of a slow, steady advance, not a lot of spectacular days. And that's why a note out yesterday from Richard Bernstein Advisors got my attention, because they found some euphoria, not in publicly traded shares per se, but focusing in on the investments favored by private equity firms, venture capitalists as well. More that particular group of investors, because they took a look at something called the Thomson Reuters Venture Capital Index, and they were comparing it to emerging markets in their report, and I thought, wait a minute, let's just look at it relative to the S&P 500 since March 2009. Okay, so you go back that far, this venture capital index is up more than 11-fold. S&P 500 gains, not shabby, especially if you figure in dividends and look at total return, because the Thomson Reuters index works the same way, but still. The Thomson Reuters index up more than twice as much as the S&P 500, even after you figure in dividends.
It's good.
And you really see it spike in the last 3 years or so. So if you're looking for euphoria, maybe these kinds of investments are the place that jumps out. If you want to know more, send me an email. I'll get you the chart, the explanation that goes with it, and everything I do going forward. The email address is dwilson@bloomberg.net. That's dwilson@bloomberg.net.
Plays perfectly into the VC conversation we were just having. Can I just do one line from Summer of Highland Falls? And this is one of my favorite lines. And I believe there is a time for meditation in cathedrals of our own. It's just it's incredible.
Whoa.
You have to read the lyrics.
It's very Carol Massar.
It is very Carol Massar. And you know what's really Amanda Gordon?
L.A.?
L.A.?
I think she's got a little L.A. streak. She's got almost like a little Maryland look going on, maybe inspired by being in L.A. She's here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio. Got a little bit of sun out there on the left coast, but some pretty serious philanthropy going on out there. What's happening?
Well, LA, of course, is a younger city, and philanthropy is younger there. But they have all the lessons learned and mistakes made in New York. They have a lot of resources to make a production, an event go. So the video, the stars, the fashion, it's all there. And they really just loved making this a Saturday night event that's very different from New York. But this was a big night out, kind of one of the biggest community fundraisers for LA. Baby to Baby started 8 years ago. What they do is every dollar raised from this event goes to pay for supplies like formula, diapers, baby carriages, cribs, to give to families in need in the Los Angeles area. And they also advise nationally, so they do have a little bit more of a reach beyond their own community.
A name that's certainly familiar to our audience is I'm thinking about Alan Patrikoff. His son, or his son's wife, right, is one of, I guess, either the...
That is
one of the hosts of the event.
And that's how I found out about the event. We were talking about the fundraiser that he's hosting for Biden in New York in December. And I mentioned I was going to LA. This was the second fundraiser I covered there. One of the interesting differences is that there was a portion of the evening where Ali Wong and Nicole Richie called on people to make donations, and they were calling out people's names. Now, that's something that in New York, for example, at Robinhood, used to happen more. You used to see more. Now people are a lot more reserved about flaunting how much they're giving. And the other thing is that now at New York Benefits, you know, everyone's on this gala circuit, and so the menus have become very low carb. It's almost always fish. There's a big salad. This LA event, Saturday night, with these, you know, beautiful men and women in great shape, was a carb fest.
Really?
It was like one slider after hamburger. Shake Shack was there, noodles, pizza. I'm
in.
Well, I will say you do name check in here a couple people who I will name check as having been on this program. Kobe Bryant being one, a big donation from him and his wife, and Byron Allen, one of the Bloomberg 50 last year.
That's right.
He was on this program. We're going to be back at the Bloomberg 50, by the way. Shameless plug on December 9th. So.
Byron calls them Kelly and Nora, who founded the organization, just the most amazing entrepreneurs.
Yes.
That's so nice. They sort of have tech philosophy to making it efficient. They have warehouses with all this stuff. It's all barcoded. They're doing great work.
Excellent reports from your travels. We really appreciate it. Amanda Gordon.
Did you have a
here
burger?
in New York?
Oh, you didn't have a burger? I had an Ashkenazi
cheesesteak
from Wexner's.
Never mind. I'm just bragging on you. Let's get over to Bob Moon. He's got your world national headlines. Hey, Bob.
Jason, at today's public impeachment hearings, Democrats insisted the president could be accused of bribery even if it wasn't successful. Republicans insisted that's a bum rap. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman is live from Capitol Hill now on today's House Intelligence Committee hearing.
Bob, under questioning, the ambassador recalled that Ukrainian leaders were taken aback in 2016 when candidate Trump suggested Russia had a right to take over Crimea. Republican Jim Jordan said their public reaction was anti-Trump election interference.
You see why maybe the president was a little concerned about what went on in Ukraine? And you couple that with corruption. He's not a big fan of foreign aid. Why he might be a little concerned about sending the hard-earned tax dollars of the American people to Ukraine?
I'm sorry, is there a question there?
There was.
Okay. It doesn't necessarily constitute interference.
The crowd in the hearing room sat in respectful silence during the hearing, but when it ended and the ambassador got up to leave, she got a standing ovation, Bob.
Irv, thank you. President Trump, who earlier asked the U.S. Supreme Court to prevent a New York prosecutor from seeing his tax and business records in a hush money investigation involving his alleged sexual affairs, is now asking the High Court to block a House subpoena for his tax returns in the impeachment inquiry. The remarkable resiliency of youth on display in the face of yesterday's tragic shooting that killed 2 students at a high school in Southern California. As investigators try to figure out why a young schoolmate opened fire, doctors are struck that the survivors are in such high spirits. It's why Dr. Boris Borgiani is so optimistic for the young victims.
Honestly, I mean, these are historic young adults. They were great. They held their composure despite being shot, and being shot in the torso is a big deal.
Global news 24 hours a day. I'm Bob Moon.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's environment of market volatility, Pershing's Prime Services is well positioned to support the needs of hedge funds and other alternative investment managers. Whether it's customized financing or securities lending solutions, platform access, or business expansion, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and agile enough to meet your evolving demands. Pershing helps to solve the needs of clients by advocating for them, providing unwavering strength, deep supply, and award-winning service that is at the core of everything we do. Find out what sets Pershing's prime brokerage team apart.
Learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers offered by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Visit our website at Pershing.com. Pershing LLC, member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
In-depth.
I wish me a Merry Christmas. I wish me a Merry Christmas. I wish me a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Don't forget yourself this Christmas. Get 90 gig of data for the price of 30 on the stunning Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus. Search O2 Christmas deals.
O2 refresh credit by Telefonica UK Limited. Contract eligibility and terms apply.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn. Hey, NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you have unlimited access to every team and every game in the league. Listen live as it happens or on demand. Anytime, anywhere. All season long. Search NFL today.
Cutting for the net. Scores! Along the goal line, Marshawn scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The roar of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut it.
The sideline, the Van Fleet for three.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on TuneIn.
Pump fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right block.
NBA today to start listening.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard. Somebody stays on his feet and scores us now.
The top of the Big 12 is at stake. Reigning champion Oklahoma travels to Waco, Texas to take on the surprising undefeated Baylor Bears. The action kicks off this Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen and favorite ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Fair amount of optimism that we're going to get a partial trade deal between the U.S. and China. The day began with White House Economic Advisor Larry Kudlow saying negotiations were coming down to in his words, short strokes. And then at the same time, Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross was telling Fox Business, the devil is always in the details, and we're down to the last details now. So, Dow Industrial Average, S&P 500, NASDAQ Comp, each better by a roughly 0.6%. Away from the issue of trade, we had some mixed economic data. Now, retail sales rebounded slightly more than forecast last month. The gain was 0.3% month over month. Mostly due to strength in auto sales and gasoline sales. There were declines in areas like clothing and furniture. And then we had the Fed kind of chiming in and saying, newsflash, there's a weakness in manufacturing. Vehicle output alone was down 7.1%, but you can write that off largely because of the GM strike. U.S. 10-year Treasury yielding 1.83% in late U.S. trade. At the same time today, the Fed warned that low interest rates could dent U.S. bank profits and then in turn push bankers into riskier behavior, and that might threaten the nation's financial stability. Dollar weakness today. We also have a weaker yen, but a stronger offshore Chinese yuan at 7.0048 against the dollar. You're caught up on markets, and that is the Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive?
Oh, no. Who's gonna drive you home?
Honey, please, I'll do the driving.
Drive on.
Excuse me, I want to drive.
Just drive, baby.
It's the question that drives us.
This is the drive to the close.
That funky music will drive us till the dawn.
On Bloomberg Radio.
Yes, indeed. Just got about 11 minutes left in today's trading session. It's time for the drive to the close. Back with us is Guillaume Escoto. He's head of ESG investments at American Century Investments. They've got roughly $171 billion in assets under management. He joins us in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Nice to have you here with us.
Thanks very much for having me.
How much is ESG in terms of the whole portfolio over at American Century?
Right. At the moment, it's approximately $60 billion.
Yeah.
And we're looking to integrate an additional $30 billion in next year. So
that's
very
a lot.
excited about that. Yes, sir.
I mean, percentage-wise, that's a lot based on the figures that we just laid out. Has that accelerated dramatically over the past few years?
It has. Ever since we've started integrating ESG factors into our investment process, we've seen continuous momentum on the part of executive management to make a push towards expanding integration across our entire investment complex. And I have to say, this also has to do a lot with our DNA as an asset management company. As you know, we are owned by the Stowers Institute for Medical Research, world-class medical research facility in Kansas City, whereby we distribute 40% of our annual dividends to founding cures for cancer and other gene-based diseases.
Well, and what's interesting, we have a story on the terminal. It's actually trending high among the most read, and it talks about 3 money managers who quit a major fund, NN Investment Partners, because the ESG rules tightened. And this is, I believe, over in Europe, and I guess rules are tightening. And I do wonder how you guys define ESG, because I feel like the definition can be rather wide and broad.
Absolutely. It can actually differ per different markets.
Yeah.
And also different, investors might have a different opinion. For us, ESG factors constitute a key input into our fundamental research process. We see this as being aligned with our fiduciary duty. And our objective by integrating such factors factors is to mitigate downside risk, but also capture upside potential. But really, we consider this as a key input into how we invest every day.
But what does it mean, ESG? Can a firm be bad on one level, but moving in a better direction, and your guys are like, check, that's good?
It's very important to have a holistic approach. If you have a company that hits the mark under the environmental pillar, but has very terrible governance, then that does not constitute a holistic approach to ESG investing.
So then you won't invest.
We would actually highlight the governance risk and elevate that to our portfolio managers, but then because it's integrated, the objective is to then move forward and integrating this into valuation, into portfolio construction.
So when you think about, Guillaume, sort of your customers, I think it's safe to say that part of the reason you guys are investing so heavily in this, pun intended, is because the market, your customers are ultimately asking for this. They're demanding it in some cases, and I would imagine voting with their dollars. Tell us about that and what you hear from customers in terms of what they want and what their definitions, to Carol's point, are or may be as it relates to ESG.
We actually see a very interesting trend is because of this regulatory push towards defining ESG, a lot of our clients are actually worried about that.
Interesting.
Because they think that they shouldn't need the government to tell them what is the definition of what matters to their constituents. So we think that going forward, there might be a little bit of a debate around that, right? There's pension funds out there in the world that actually have been doing sustainable investment for quite some time, and now the government is coming up with these standards, and they're like, well, listen, do we have a say into this? Because we are the best positioned to know what our constituents want, right? So we remain focused on delivering solutions for all of our clients across the world, regardless of their investment objectives. And when it comes to ESG, our thesis is going forward, asset management companies will have to have multiple capabilities to service these clients that have different needs and whose needs are also evolving.
Well, it's interesting, too. I do wonder about like standards set by the government, but I do think at some point, you have to have some kind of rules, right? So that you can compare what you guys are doing in terms of your funds versus another one. Do you not?
Well, that's, absolutely. We do welcome, for example, more regulation around, disclosure. That's going to be very important because right now there's no standard for disclosure. So for us as investors, the more transparency companies could be, the more transparent that is, companies could be the best.
And I think it puts pressure on companies to do kind of the right thing.
It does, but we would make sure that the quality of disclosure becomes first before the quantity of disclosure, because that's a risk to having so many different types of data points out there that might not be financially material and might risk confusing or clustering the ESG signal for investors to make decisions.
So what's the best way of measuring ESG in your view? I mean, you guys say holistic, so you're looking at it from a bunch of different angles. So you can't have a company that's polluting, but they've got a lot of women on the board. So, right? You're saying that you guys want it all across the board. You want all the boxes checked.
We want to make sure that the boxes are checked insofar as these issues are material to the sector-specific dynamics.
What does that mean? I'm sorry.
So, for example, if you have an energy company, right, the environmental pillar is going to be much higher in terms of weight in our rating than the social or governance pillar, right? That's because these companies have strong external environmental externalities, right, that actually can bring about risk to investors. That being said, when we will rate a bank, then we'll put much more emphasis under the social and governance pillar.
So how has that evolved over time then? Because I would imagine, maybe to build on Carol's point, that someone who would look at that sort of screen and say, okay, well, that's cool that you're very interested in the environment for an energy company, but they've got a bunch of 70-year-old white dudes running the company, and so maybe I'm not as interested there.
That all will depend on the client's objectives. Some clients want us to mitigate risks associated with certain sector key material issues. In the case of energy, we all know it's climate change, it's water stress, it's the whole concept of stranded assets. So they might want to make sure that, hey, even if the board might not be stellar, right, if the board is actually doing the right thing to mitigate the company's external environmental footprint, then it might be satisfied with that. However, for companies whose core assets is people, banks, right, for example, well, in that case, they will prefer having a lot of diversity on the board, right? And they might actually penalize the company from corporate misconduct.
But it's really taking risk out as an investment.
Correct.
Right?
That's
it's not so... Because what this says to me is that we talk so much about ESG, that this is kind of early thinking about ESG, that it isn't necessarily, kind of being really embracing kind of all that is ESG. Like you really are you're taking a specific industry, right, and taking out the risk factors.
Well, the goal is to contextualize this per sector specific dynamics so that we can better integrate this into our investment process. So we wouldn't feel necessarily that a social, let's say, issue that really matters to the pharmaceutical sector could be applied the same way to the mining sector. So it's very important to have sector contextualization.
That's really interesting. I have to say, this is the most nuanced conversation I feel like we've ever had about ESG. We're really grateful to you for
Thank you.
Spending some time with us. Guillaume Moscoto is head of ESG investments for American Century Investments. We're just a couple minutes away from the close of trading here for the week in the U.S. Stay tuned. We'll have your movers and shakers, the closing bell, and a really fun last hour as well. You're listening to Bloomberg.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
Hey, NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can hear every NFL game live as it's happening, or catch it later on demand, anytime, anywhere, all season long.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
In the stock market and in life, everything can change from 1 minute to the next. Be the first to hear the latest money news and market trends with CNBC on TuneIn. Wherever your day takes you, listen to CNBC's full slate of programming, including shows like Fast Money, Squawk Box, and Mad Money with Jim Cramer. And when the next big business story breaks, CNBC lets you know with live updates and commentary. At the office, at home, or on the go. Search CNBC on TuneIn to listen.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip
Follow
Bayless.
and TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard. Somebody stays on his feet and scores down.
The top of the Big 12 is at stake. Reigning champion Oklahoma travels to Waco, Texas to take on the surprising undefeated Baylor Bears. The action kicks off this Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
From ESPN and the award-winning producers of The Sterling Affairs comes the latest season of 30 for 30 podcasts. 4 brand new stories of espionage.
He wanted this team to be the Barcelona of women's basketball.
Resilience.
I started to scream. I tried to get away.
Corruption.
It's the culture of win at all costs.
And rebirth.
How will we ever rebuild it?
30 for 30 Podcasts, Season 6. Listen in favorite 30 for 30 podcasts on TuneIn.
Capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
There you have it. Sound of the closing bell for this Friday, November 15th. Records for the U.S. equity market on a lot of talk about the U.S. and China being close to a partial trade deal. We had White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow beginning the day with the conversation on negotiations coming down to the short strokes, in his words. And then Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross told Fox Business, the devil is always in the details, and we're down to the last details now. So records for the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ across the board. We're going to need a few moments here to get accurate settlement, but the industrial average at this moment is up 0.8%. 28,004. S&P 500, 3,120 with a gain of 0.8%. And in the NASDAQ market, the composite index at 8540. The gain there is greater than 0.7%. Now, away from the issue of trade, we had some economic news, and it was kind of mixed. We'll begin with a number on retail sales. A slight rebound relative to last month and a bit more than forecast. The gain was 0.3% month over month, largely because of gains in auto sales and gas sales. And you move away and you see a little bit of weakness in areas like clothing and furniture. We also heard from the Fed reporting a drop in manufacturing output, excluding motor vehicle sales. It would have been far worse had you begun kind of discounted the drop in motor vehicle sales. Output alone in vehicles down 7.1%. That was largely because of the GM strike. Twitter making some exceptions to its recent ban on political ads. The company will allow cause-based ads for some economic, environmental, and social issues. Twitter shares today up by more than 1%. In the bond market, U.S. 10-year Treasury last quoted with a yield of 1.83%. The dollar was weaker, so too the Japanese yen, but the offshore Chinese yuan strengthened against the dollar by 0.2% to 7.00. That's the Bloomberg Business Flash.
Move around. Motion creates the motion.
I feel the earth move under my feet.
You move like they do. I've never seen anyone move that fast.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
That was called movers and shakers. They cost a little more. That name cracked me up.
Bloomberg Business Week, Movers and Shakers, with Carol Messer and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
Yes, indeed. Let's take a look at some of the market action on this Friday. Doug, of course, breaking down the closing numbers, Jason, but let's go through, because we pretty much, just in the last minutes, we took another leg up on those major equity averages, right? And it was, a record on the Dow? I think it was a record on the S&P 500.
I believe you're right.
As well. So let's just talk about it. I think we're up 6 weeks in a row for the S&P. Today, up 0.8%. For the week overall, up 0.9%. NASDAQ is up 7 in a row. We're up 0.7%. In today's session, it's up 0.8% for the week overall. The Dow was up 1.2% for the week overall. It's up 4 in a row. It was up 0.8%. Your outperformers today, almost everything across the board. The only group, major industry group in the S&P among the 11 that are there, that was down. Materials down fractionally on a percentage basis.
Healthcare, 0.08%.
I know, right? It's like barely moving. Healthcare, information technology, communication service, and industrials among your top performers.
Healthcare up 2.2%.
But that's because of Elizabeth Warren making some comments. I just saw Joe Weisenthal tweet out something too about, I think it was at UNH, that was up a lot. United Health Group. Let me just take a quick look. That stock, was up 5.3% in today's session. And I think that there was positive sentiment, but I thought there was Warren's new healthcare. I think there was something that came out, let's see, about Elizabeth Warren's healthcare plan, and that for some reason it was supportive. That they went up. Sorry.
Can I talk about chip and chip equipment makers while you look for that?
Yeah.
And interesting, and we saw this yesterday after the close, sort of the tale of two stocks in a way. AMAT, the chip equipment maker, that stock, one of your best gainers, some really positive vibes coming out of those earnings and the forecast. That stock, your best performer, as I say, and it was, let me just get a final number. It was up 8.9%, 9% today. On the other side of the coin, NVIDIA, and that was a name that Anand Srinivasan was along to talk about yesterday after the close. Their forecast, spooking investors just a little bit. So that stock was down today, ending up down about 2.7%. Now, one of the things Anand warned us to think about there is NVIDIA, as you recall, is not like Intel or Texas Instruments. This isn't really a read about electronic demand. It's a much more niche player.
Right.
really on those graphics processing.
You need to understand each of the chip companies,
exactly.
right? Because they all play differently. Let me just go back to the healthcare plans, because forgive me that I was a little jumbled before. But it was Elizabeth Warren coming out. She posted something on her campaign website today, and it said that instead of pushing for a full single-payer bill, she said she would first try to pass a fast-track budget reconciliation legislation, creating a Medicare for All option. Basically, she would put children and poor families under Medicare for All in her first 100 days in the White House, while not actually fully implementing her $20.5 trillion plan until her third year in office. And as a result, you had all of the managed care stocks jumping. Humana, Anthem, these are among your top performers in the S&P 500 today. So that's why you saw names like this really flying high.
There you go. All right. Let's take a quick look at volatility. The VIX down a nice chunk, 8.1%. It was down, closing under 12 at 11.99. This is Bloomberg. All right, Dave, you're up.
Hi, my name is Dave.
Wilson, where are you? Wilson!
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
We're going for a price on Wilson. Open up the door, it's Dave. Who? Dave.
Hey, Mr. Wilson! Dave Wilson back with us with his stock of the day. What you got, Mr. Dub?
I've got RadNet for you, Jason. It's a company that runs diagnostic imaging centers in New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Florida, and California. The centers handle everything from X-rays to CT scans, MRI procedures, ultrasound tests, digital mammography, and more. RadNet was founded in 1981 and bought in 1992 by a publicly traded company called PrimeDex Health Systems. PrimeDex adopted the current name in 2006 following a takeover. The ticker is RDNT. RadNet shares went on a roller coaster ride up and then down from 2006 through 2009. They started climbing again in 2014 as the company refinanced debt. And this year, they've risen as much as 81% and set records along the way. The latest record occurred today after RadNet was named to the S&P Small Cap 600 Index. The company will be added before Wednesday's opening bell to replace newspaper publisher Gannett, which is being acquired. RadNet's selection means that funds tracking the Small Cap 600 will have to own shares. And from the way the stock was performing today, some of those funds may be buying already. RadNet closing with a gain of 13.4%, the biggest since March.
I was looking for my champagne bottles to pop. Did you see the headline? Dow Jones Industrial Average topping 28,000 for the first
there
time.
You go.
28,000.
I thought you were popping a champagne cork for Reynolds Consumer Products because it filed for an IPO.
That would be a no.
No, you're not. You're not interested.
You're not a Reynolds wrap kind of girl?
Reynolds wrap, little baggies.
Oh, come on! I love Reynolds wrap. But Dave Wilson, 28,000. I mean, think about the move that you have seen certainly in reporting on the market.
Call me when they get to 30,000, Carol.
There you
go.
go.
Well, we're not that far off.
Yeah.
True.
I think 30,000, Dow 30,000 could come as Dave Wilson celebrates his 30th anniversary at Bloomberg News next year.
Jason, are you becoming a market strategist all of a sudden?
No, I'm just saying that, there's some nice little narrative bookends. The Dave Wilson indicator.
30
I like
30.
It
30 does have a ring to
30
it.
for 30. Right here. You're a sports fan as well, I know. Anyway, all right. Dave Wilson, have a great weekend. Looking forward to catching up with you on Monday for your insights into the market, your chart of the day, and your stock of the day. Carol?
All right, let's get a check on world and national.
What? Yeah. Oh, I'm here.
I was looking for a Giphy because I want to tweet some stuff out. All right, Bob Moon, what do you got?
Carol, a clearly perturbed House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff paused today's public impeachment hearing to read aloud today's tweets from President Trump attacking his own former ambassador to Ukraine. Schiff accused Trump of continuing his smear campaign even as she was testifying today, Trump claiming, quote, "Everywhere Marie Yovanovitch went turned bad." Schiff told Yovanovitch, "This is blatant witness intimidation."
What effect do you think that has on other witnesses' willingness to come forward and expose wrongdoing?
Well, it's very intimidating.
Schiff addressed Trump directly, telling him to stop obstructing his committee. For his part, Trump essentially responded that he'll say what he wants. He said he has free speech and is entitled to his opinion. The man who was the conduit between the Trump campaign and WikiLeaks got caught up in his own lies today when a federal court jury in Washington found him guilty in a case that grew out of Robert Mueller's investigation. Roger Stone was convicted of all 7 counts in a federal indictment, including lying to Congress, tampering with a witness, and obstructing the House investigation into whether the Trump campaign coordinated with Russia. Stone is the 6th Trump aide or advisor to be convicted of charges in the investigation that the president continues to dismiss as a witch hunt. President Trump is dangling the prospect of a middle-income tax cut in front of voters again after abandoning the idea after last year's midterm elections. He now says it's contingent on a Republican victory next year in the House. Global News 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. I'm Bob Moon.
In the real world, there are no rabbits in hats, crystal balls, or cards that turn into money. Instead, you get business information from top-tier analysts and experts.
What should expectations be for this latest round of negotiations?
That's actually better, isn't it?
They're both trying to say they have the upper hand.
Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
I'm a 40-year-old man that walked in there to get his high school diploma. It was very hard for me, but Miss Araceli, she gave me direction.
At age 47, Marco finished his high school diploma.
50% of getting your high school diploma is walking through those doors. The other 50% is doing the work.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
The market's in focus every business day. The P&L Podcast with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz.
Are there some sectors that you want to have more or less exposure to?
What's behind this engine of gains?
Analysis of the day's Wall Street action.
The U.S. market looks relatively safe.
From Bloomberg Intelligence, Bloomberg Opinion, and influential newsmakers.
Ward McCarthy joins us right now.
P&L with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
You're fierce. You take care of business and don't hold back. Taking care of your health shouldn't be any different. You know when something's off. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, and rashes. Listen to your body. It could be lupus. We're here to help you take control. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
What if your email was organized by project and not by date? What if everyone looked at the same thing instead of their own inbox? Then it wouldn't be email at all. Forget your fragmented, jumbled inbox and make the change to channels in Slack. Spaces dedicated to individual projects, topics, or teams. All your communication is neatly organized and everyone is on the same page. Slack. Choose a better way to work. Get started at slack.com.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Oh, hello, Steve.
Hi, Mr. Ratcliffe.
How did you find yesterday's class on Newton's laws?
Yeah, really interesting. Just getting my teeth into his first law of motion.
Fantastic. Well, any questions, grab me after class tomorrow.
Cool, all right. And here's your Big Mac meal to go.
Cheers, Steve.
At McDonald's, we know juggling study and work can be tricky. That's why our shifts can fit around you. For flexible hours, search McDonald's jobs. Bright futures are made at McDonald's.
You're listening to TuneIn, where you can hear all the audio you love in one place. Live NFL games, the hottest music, breaking news, and podcasts. Push play and go about your day, only on TuneIn.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen and favorite ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The roar of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut it.
The sideline, the man fleet for three.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now. Hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right block.
NBA Today to start listening.
From ESPN and the award-winning producers of The Sterling Affairs comes the latest season of 30 for 30 podcasts. 4 brand new stories of espionage.
He wanted this team to be the Barcelona of women's basketball.
Resilience.
I started to scream. I tried to get away.
Corruption.
It's the culture of win at all costs.
And rebirth.
How will we ever rebuild it?
30 for 30 Podcasts, Season 6. Listen and favorite 30 for 30 podcasts on TuneIn.
Along the goal line, Martin scores! It takes it home!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
The move, and a shot, faced off!
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Boy, there was a lot of talk today that we are going to see a partial trade deal between the U.S. and China, and that was the driver behind a rally in equities today. And it sent the equity market to all-time highs for the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ. The industrial average now above 28 grand for the first time, 28,004 with a gain of 0.8%. S&P picks up about 0.8% on the day to an all-time high 3120. NASDAQ comp 8540 with a gain of about 0.7%. So let's move away from the trade story for a moment because it's kind of interesting. We had some weak economic data today. Retail sales rebounded a slightly more than forecast last month. A gain here 0.3% month over month, mainly because of strength in auto sales and gasoline. We did see declines in clothing and furniture, and then the Fed reported a drop in manufacturing output, excluding motor vehicles. And one of the reasons that the Atlanta Fed Bank's GDP Now forecast is only looking for economic growth in Q4 to pick up at an annual rate of 0.3%. In the bond market, U.S. 10-year Treasury last quoted in New York at a yield of 1.83%. You're caught up on markets. Let's get back to Bloomberg Business Week.
All right, Doug Krisner, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. I'm Carol Massar, along with my partner, Jason Kelly, and this is Bloomberg Radio.
So we keep waiting on the world to change.
All right, so we've had some nice sort of collisions of our interests, I feel like, a couple times today, Carol, for this Friday edition of Bloomberg Business Week. And this is another. We care about the earth, we care about the climate, and so does Julia Jackson. And like us, maybe even more than us, she knows a lot about wine, certainly more than me, maybe more than you as well. And that's a bold statement.
Just because you drink wine, do you know a lot about wine?
Exactly. She's the proprietor of the Jackson Family Winery. Mm-hmm. She's also the founder of Grounded. She's based out in Sonoma, California. She's here with us in New York City. Tell us about Grounded, Julia, and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. So I come from Jackson Family Wines, which was founded by my father, the late Jess Jackson, and my mother, Barbara Benke. I'm a second-generation proprietor. And the last decade, I've really become a student of the climate crisis and what's happening. And I've become increasingly concerned about our trajectory as a species, and a lot of people talking about the problem but not actually doing something about it. So back in 2017, the wildfires decimated Santa Rosa and caused $9 billion worth of damage to my community.
It's like, how could you can't ignore it, right, when you're in California right now, and in terms of the fires and the devastation that we've seen.
Absolutely. I actually just lost my home 3 weeks ago.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. But I have to say that after losing my home this time around, I am more committed to the cause, even more so than I was 2 years ago, which is ironic because it was 2 years ago, the 2017 wildfires, which really was the tipping point for me, even though I'd been studying climate change, experiencing it firsthand and evacuating our ranch really led me to realize this is happening right now. And this is happening in our community, and I need to do something about this.
And you're giving a speech, or you right to the UN, or you did give a speech?
I just gave a speech this morning.
So tell us about what you wanted to emphasize, because I do love that. I feel like the conversation has been elevated, and there's more and more conversations about it, and I hope that equally there are more things being done to maybe
and conversations about action, it feels like, and that seemed to be at the core of what you were saying. So tell us about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So 2 years ago, I had the idea to launch my own startup, Grounded, which really the vision for it was to create a global movement around climate solutions. So get solutions, give them a platform, and have a summit. We had our first one in March of last year, convening solutionists, speaking to all sorts of solutions to the climate crisis, and get them in a room with policymakers, investors, influencers, and give them a megaphone so that we're not just talking about the problem. We can actually have these solutions, pitch their solutions to the world.
What's interesting is, and Jason and I have certainly had these conversations at many of the Bloomberg Live events, but, when you've seen the Business Roundtable come out and say, okay, it's not just a responsibility to our shareholder, there are employees, there is the environment as a whole, and I do wonder if you think, in terms of the conversations you're having and the people that you're speaking to, is it our policymakers, or is it really going to be the private sector that continues to make the big changes? And California really is front and center with all of this.
Yes, all hands on deck.
Yeah.
And Governor Jerry Brown, we were really honored to have him open our summit last year. And the book Drawdown by Paul Hawken, which is 100 Solutions to Climate Change, was really, for me, the inspiration behind Grounded and giving solutions a chance. It's going to take policymakers, it's going to take the private sector, it's going to take individual action, it's going to take influencers. It's literally going to take every single human being on this planet. So being able to create a movement and get a lot more people to realize there are solutions like regenerative agriculture that can sequester 1 trillion tons of carbon if scaled globally. That would put us at 1870 levels. Pre-industrial revolution.
It's funny because we talk about things like cars and stuff, but you do think about agriculture. I was out in the Midwest and meat production and so on and so forth, but you do think about the impact something like that is having on our global economy and certainly our global environment.
Right. Well, we really appreciate the time. Julia Jackson, proprietor of the Jackson Family Wines. She's also the founder of Grounded, based in Sonoma, California. This work is at the core of so many of the things that we're talking about. There's a business imperative, clearly an economic imperative,
ESG
a cultural
investing
imperative.
We were just talking about.
Absolutely. And there's a human imperative to this. To your point, it feels like we're at this moment where more and more entrepreneurs, CEOs, folks are starting to engage on this on a much more holistic level.
Well, and it goes to, it's the right thing to do, but you're also seeing more companies talk about it, making the business case for it as well, that it makes sense. I do want to point out their next 2020 summit. It's in March. The theme is Accelerate and Connect. So folks want to find out a little bit more about that. They can certainly check out Grounded online.
All right. And coming up, speaking of holistic, we're going to get into a new fitness concept. Herbie Calvis, we know him. He's going to be here with us in studio talking about a big product launch this week, in a week that we've been talking a lot about Peloton stock while you've been gone, not to surprise you.
It's making its way back to its IPO price.
Its IPO price slowly but surely. And then we're going to round out the show talking about three-dimensional
fashion.
fashion.
Design. This company
also has sort of a component, a climate component and sustainability component as well.
Hey, we do it all. I'm just going to say that. All right. I'm Carol Massar along with Jason Kelly here on Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks closed out their sixth consecutive winning week after U.S. officials hinted that a trade deal with China is getting close. The Dow Jones Industrial Average topped 28,000 for the first time, up 223. The S&P 500 gained 24. The Nasdaq Composite jumped 62. White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow says talks with China are in the final stages, though there's no guarantee that there won't be another breakdown. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross said last night there will be a deal in all likelihood. The government's latest retail sales report was a mixed bag. Total sales rose a bit more than forecast, but the gains were driven by cars and gasoline. Other categories, including clothing and furniture, were soft. JCPenney gained more than 6%. Although it reported a third-quarter loss and lower same-store sales, it raised its forecast. Penny's CEO said its turnaround is gaining steam. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Colbert, filling in for Smokey because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless, dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Coffee shop, cashback, cat flaps, cashback, beanbags, rucksack, hire car, buy a car, flapjack, cashback, dumbbells, cashback, takeaway, holiday to anywhere the sun is at, bum bag, laptop, big match, hatchback, binge watching, paintballing, crab fishing, cashback, anything you want to buy, everywhere you want to go. Guess what? Cashback. Whatever you spend your money on, get money back every time with the American Express Platinum Cashback Everyday Credit Card. Search Amex Cashback. Representative 22.9% APR variable. Minimum annual spend to receive cashback. Terms apply. 18 plus subject to approval.
I wish me a Merry Christmas. I wish me a Merry Christmas. I wish me a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Don't forget yourself this Christmas. Get 90 gig of data for the price of 30 on the stunning Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus. Search O2 Christmas deals.
O2 Refresh Credit by Telefonica UK Limited. Contract eligibility and terms apply.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard. Somebody stays on his feet and scores us down.
The top of the Big 12 is at stake. Reigning champion Oklahoma travels to Waco, Texas to take on the surprising undefeated Baylor Bears. The action kicks off this Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
What if, instead of browsing the World Wide Web, we were all browsing GopherNet?
Gopher is easy to navigate and easy to browse.
Because in the early 90s,
Gopher was taking off faster.
Until they made one crucial mistake.
At that point, Gopher traffic on the internet dropped off.
Find out why open source won the battle for the internet next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR. You can subscribe to the TED Radio Hour on TuneIn.
You're listening to TuneIn, where you can hear all the audio you love in one place. Live NFL games, the hottest music, breaking news, and podcasts. Push play and go about your day, only on TuneIn.
couldn't. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Start hearing more of what you want.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
From the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York, Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960 to the country, Sirius XM Channel 119, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
All right, coming up, we're going to catch up with an old friend of ours. He's got a new company in the fitness space. We did a little bit of sip talk. Now we're going to do a little sweat talk, mixed fitness.
All right, we're going to get into that in just a moment. First up, though, back to world and national news.
No, we're going to do markets. Markets.
Sorry.
Come on, Carol, wake up.
You know,
Hi, Doug. Welcome back and wake up. So we had a lot of optimism that we're going to get a partial trade deal between the U.S. and China. That was really the driver in sending U.S. equities to an all-time high today. The Dow at a record 28,004 with a gain of 0.8%. S&P 500 picks up 0.8% as well to 3120, and the NASDAQ comp at a record close 8540 with a gain of about 0.7%. Day's economic news was mixed. Retail sales rebound slightly, 0.3% month over month, but then the Fed reports a drop in manufacturing output. U.S. 10-year Treasury last quoted at a yield of 1.83%. Carol, you know I love you, right?
I do, but I'm feeling a little hurt, though.
I'm sorry.
I know. I've just been in too many time zones in the last week. We love you, Doug Krisner. You are listening to Bloomberg Radio.
So I've very much been looking forward to this conversation with Herbie Calvis, the president of Mixed Fitness, in part because I've known Herbie for a long time. Full discosure.
Oh, does that mean you have stories?
I didn't know we were going there.
Do you have stories on Jason Kelly?
I do.
Yeah.
Later?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Better than 20 years I've known you, but in part because I've been tracking your career very closely. You worked at Timex on the Iron Man brand. You worked for Kiss My Face, a great organic skin products company, and you've worked in consumer products, and now you've turned your attention to fitness, mixed fitness. You guys had a big week this week launching a whole new platform. Tell us about it.
So we're launching up in home fitness space. We feel like this category is emerging. It's burgeoning now. It's a new category. And what we decided to do about a year ago is step back and look at the consumers in this category. Nobody's really talking about the different segments of consumers that exist. And what we realized was there's a group, about 7% of consumers are out there to work out to win, work out to compete. And there's a much larger group of consumers that are looking to work out to just be fit and live a better life.
So which one do you want?
The second group. The second group. And that group, I mean, if you step back even and just look at the category, fitness is about a $32 billion category right now.
Huge.
And
that includes what? Gyms? You're talking about everything, right?
Yeah, that's according to IRSA.
Yeah.
And it's gyms. It's fitness and wellness.
Okay.
But yet obesity rates are 2/3 of adults are struggling with overweight and obesity. 1/3 of children are struggling with overweight and obesity. So something's not working.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no solution out there that's really helping these people.
All right. So we think about Peloton. IPO didn't go as great as maybe they thought, although it's creeping back toward that IPO price. You look at something like Orange Theory Fitness, which I know you've tried. I mean, that's a really interesting concept that seems to be catching on and gets to a slightly wider market. Put this in context for us with those competitors.
So Peloton really, if you think about John Foley's founder story, it's about SoulCycle streaming into the home.
Yeah.
He and his wife were frustrated. They couldn't get into their favorite class
at
SoulCycle. So he's like, there's got to be an answer here. And he's right. There is an answer. I mean, streaming has hit music, it's hit television and movies, and now it's hitting fitness. And there's not just going to be one brand in that category. There's different consumers with different needs, like we just articulated. For us, the context is we didn't start this way, but it's an easy way for people to understand what we're doing. We are a bit of a blend of Noom. You're familiar with Noom, the weight loss app, where there's positive psychology, behavior change, to make lasting change, combined with Orange Theory, in a way, which is the fastest growing gym franchise in the country right now, because it's an approachable, realistic fitness concept with heart rate training, which is safe, combined with cross training, which is also safe. There's a lot of overuse injuries of too much rowing, too much running, too much cycling.
Right.
So we're bringing that together, all of that, and bringing it to the home.
Herb, I think sometimes some of the criticism of some of these in-home devices or fitness pieces of equipment is the cost. And I'm just curious, because that can certainly prevent you from reaching a larger market.
Right.
So tell me how accessible is it?
So we've priced it very accessibly, but it's not about price. It really is about the psychographic, and we consider ourselves a content and technology company. So for the product itself, we have two different price options. We have one that is a bike, with the bike is the component of the product that is cardio, but we also, the bike only is about $11.99 or $34 a month if you finance it.
Right.
And then we have a Mix Plus that we call, that includes weights and accessories from Gaia and Spry, and that's $14.99.
Well, and I'm interested in that second part because it does feel like people are, and we see this with Peloton, quite honestly, sort of expanding this platform, understanding that people want to do different things at different times. What are you seeing in terms of how people are evolving their activities?
So, I mean, the consumer that we're going after, we spoke to them, we dove deeper to understand, and they want variety. They want something they can look forward to that's different every day. They're not looking to be the master or personal record in a bike ride or a run.
A little bit, right? Not get bored, essentially.
So we're offering that, and it's not an afterthought. It's from the beginning, similar to Orange Theory, where it's that cross training and the mix of different concepts in there, and for the mind as well. You know, that positive psychology that Noom is doing, we're doing that in a big way in this product as well.
Talk to us, though, like kind of the support part of it, like, you know, thinking about someone working out and maybe some of the issues that they're having, because I think about Weight Watchers, right?
Yeah.
You know, WW. I mean, they were really trying to be kind of a part of your life. That they're the platform you go to for various things, a very holistic approach. So I'm just curious.
It comes down to the coaches. Our coaches are amazing, and they're
who are they?
I would say they're all industry veterans. We've got people that are on the board of different industry associations. They've worked for various leaders out there, Lifetime, Equinox, Soul Cycle, and they see what we see, and they believe in the mission that the fitness industry is kind of failing America in many ways. So how can they do something different? And they've bought on, and they're helping us.
I do wonder, we've only got about a minute left, but I do wonder sort of what you take from your previous experience. I especially think about your work on the Ironman brand at Timex. You understand, as you say, sort of the psychographic. How has that evolved from the performance level, but also, you know, that was a best-selling watch for a wide variety of people.
Right. And, well, it's aspirational. Yeah. There was an aspirational aspect there as well that, you know, the Ironman watch was a badge for consumers, right? And you could wear that on Wall Street and be like, oh, he does Ironmans, or he's an athlete.
Or he or she at least works out.
Or works out or does something.
But there's something to be creating a community.
There was a bit of a community as well, definitely. But from my own personal experience in seeing that, it was like, okay, what's sustainable? You see the trends kind of peak and then they go down. And you see a lot of injuries that come from that as well. So even personally, I've done an Ironman, done many marathons. Yeah. I'm like, that's not something I know I'm going to keep up and enjoy doing on a regular basis. So I like the variety. I like mixing it up as I get older, especially.
I also think at some point you're going to hopefully have medical plans, healthcare plans, where you are encouraged help to be able to buy more of these devices to keep everybody healthier.
Absolutely. All right. Herbie Calvez, president of Mix Fitness. I like that he got in that little flex that he's on an Ironman too. Love this guy. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Let's get back to Bob Moon. He's got your world national headlines. Hey, Bob.
Jason, even today, President Trump launched a fresh personal attack on his former ambassador to Ukraine. It happened as Marie Yovanovitch was providing chilling detail at the House impeachment hearing of being suddenly ousted from her post and feeling threatened upon learning President Trump had denounced her in a phone call to Ukraine's president. In that call, Trump assailed her as bad news and said she was going to go through some things. She took that as a veiled threat. At that moment, Trump was tweeting that everywhere she served turned bad.
The ambassador is not a material fact witness to any of the accusations that are being hurled at the president for this impeachment inquiry.
I obviously don't dispute that the president has the right to withdraw an ambassador at any time for any reason. But what I do wonder is why it was necessary to smear my reputation.
The panel's chairman, Adam Schiff, said Trump was engaging again in witness intimidation. At the White House, Trump denied it.
Quiet. Sir, do you believe your tweets and words can be intimidating?
I don't think so at all.
The president told reporters in the Oval Office he was just offering his opinion.
Quiet.
Well, that was the president. He said he has a right to free speech. The number 3 Republican in the House says President Trump was wrong to post those tweets critical of Yovanovitch during her testimony in the impeachment hearings. Representative Liz Cheney said Yovanovitch clearly is somebody who's been a public servant to the United States for decades. Global News 24 hours a day, on air, and at TikTok on Twitter. I'm Bob Moon.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network number 1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients, and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us number 1 in client support, number 1 in firm leadership, number 1 in operational support, number 1 in compensation, number 1 in professional development support, and number 1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/award.
Startups and research universities like New Jersey Institute of Technology are fueling the innovation economy. And few people are better positioned to see what's on the horizon in New Jersey than physicist and state representative Andrew Zwicker.
How technology is transforming our financial sector is revolutionary, and so much of that is in New Jersey. We are innovators when it comes to agriculture, and there is opportunity now for great transformation in how are we going to grow food in an ever-growing population, and how do we turn urban centers into agricultural centers. Autonomous vehicles is another one where we have some of the world's leading experts, and how this will transform how those who are either elderly or are visually impaired or mobilely impaired can start to use autonomous vehicles to transform their lives and have access to transportation they could have never had before.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu/research.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
The swagger of a perfect dunk. The rush of a three made from all the way downtown. The adrenaline surge of great defense. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? There's nothing like live NBA and nothing like listening live on TuneIn.
Giannis down the lane of the rim, throwing right corner three, another one.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season, so you can be there when it matters most. Never miss the action as it happens. Hear the ball you love. Hear it live on TuneIn. Search NBA today to start listening.
Hey, NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can hear every NFL game live as it's happening, or catch it later on demand, anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen and favorite ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
You're listening to TuneIn, where you can hear all the audio you love in one place. Live NFL games, the hottest music, breaking news, and podcasts. Push play and go about your day, only on TuneIn.
This is the TuneIn Newsreel with top news stories from today.
To have put money into stocks in March of 2009. That's when the Luthold Group says the bull market began a little more than 10 years ago. Return has been a whopping 468%. The vaping death toll has hit 42 in the U.S. with 2,100 vapors sick from e-cigarettes. The CDC is still trying to figure out what's causing the illness.
Hear breaking news as it happens with live around-the-clock coverage from CNBC on TuneIn.
Along the goal line, scores! It takes it home!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
Gonna move, hit a shot, he scores!
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. What if, instead of browsing the World Wide Web, we were all browsing GopherNet?
Gopher is easy to navigate and easy to browse.
Because in the early 90s,
Gopher was taking off faster.
Until they made one crucial mistake.
At that point, Gopher traffic on the internet dropped off.
Find out why open source won the battle for the internet next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR. You can subscribe to the TED Radio Hour on TuneIn.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
There was a lot happening in markets today, not the least of which optimism on the U.S. and China getting very close to locking down a partial trade deal. The Dow Industrial Average, the S&P 500, NASDAQ comp, all setting records, each up anywhere between 8 to 0.7%. So the industrials finishing the day at 28,004, S&P at 3120, NASDAQ comp 8540. Many of the managed care and hospital stocks rose after Democratic presidential candidate Elizabeth Warren explained how she plans to gradually move the U.S. into her government-run Medicare system for all. Twitter is making some exceptions to its recent ban on political ads. The company will allow so-called cause-based ads for economic, environmental, and social issues. Today, Twitter up nearly 1.3%. In the bond market, U.S. 10-year Treasury last quoted at a yield of 1.83%. The dollar dropped weaker against the majors by 0.2%. If you look at the Bloomberg Dollar Spot Index, got a weaker yen, but a stronger offshore Chinese yuan at 7.00. That's a quick look at markets. Let's get back to Bloomberg Business Week.
Doug, thanks so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week right here on Bloomberg Radio.
I sure do want you to know that you wear it well.
They call themselves veteran fashion technologists. I kind of love that terminology. And they are founders of a 3D fashion design and development solutions company used by the likes of Nordstrom, PVH, Ralph Lauren, and so many more. Sharon and Lena Lim are the co-founders of Browseware. Lena is in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio right here in New York. Sharon is on the phone from Singapore, where it's Saturday morning, so it's kind of early out there. We welcome you both to Bloomberg Radio and Bloomberg Business Week. Lena, let me start with you. Tell us a little bit about your company and what you guys are doing.
So we're in the 3D simulation software. So 3D has always been in place, but not for soft cloth and how it drapes on a body. So we are the leading 3D technology solutions for the fashion industry.
Well, and a key part of this, Sharon, come on in here, is the sustainability aspect of it. It's something that we're talking about more and more here on our show. Personally, we're talking about it. I know, Carol, you and I have talked about talking about it with our kids even. So talk to us about the sustainability element here, Sharon.
I think for the fashion industry, it's long drawn, and it's something that it's about changing the way fashion basically is designed, developed, and sold. And this essentially is why I think Browseware exists as a company, to kind of drive some of the sustainability. I think the idea at the end of the day is don't produce until you know that it's going to go somewhere where the consumer wants it, and not to keep producing. As well that the fashion industry has a lot of unsustainable production methods, and producing a physical garment often is not the best way to go so the idea is to reduce it until you know it's really going to go somewhere that someone wants to buy it.
It's like just-in-time inventory. I love this. It's taking me back to accounting in college. But what's interesting, and Lena, what I find, Jason and I have had some conversations, an author of a book called Fashionopolis, and talking about fast fashion.
She was here earlier this week while you were gone.
I know she was. And it's just fascinating. We've been kind of really involved with what she's been writing about and talking about, but this whole idea of kind of waste by the fast fashion industry to some extent, and the waste on the industry. So, Lena, tell me what you guys do at Browseware. I understand just doing it just in time, how that is making a difference, and certainly some of the companies that you work with and some of the brands, how that has improved kind of their impact on our climate.
So one area that people are not aware of is, firstly, the fashion industry is like the most pollutant, second to oil and gas. We are probably throwing clothes at a rate of about 11,000 pieces per hour into landfill. And a part of that is not just coming from what's not sold. A part of it is coming from how clothes are being designed, sampled right before it is even being made. So they're going through 3-4 rounds of iteration just to get an idea of what the designer really wants.
Right.
And that is making a huge, because these clothes are thrown away, they can't be sold.
Why can't they be recycled, though? Like H&M is a retailer, and of course there's been criticism about them in terms of fast fashion, but they are increasingly taking in clothes and recycling them and making them into new. So why is it, Lena, that we can't do that?
You can. But the whole idea around it is, while you can recycle it, a more sustainable manner of it is to think about, how about not producing it until you really want it?
Just stop it.
Yeah, just stop it. Then we don't have to deal with the whole issue of reusing it or recycling it. I think that's where Browseware comes in. Let's nip it until we really need it, until it can really be wanted.
And so, Sharon, as you think about this from where you sit literally in Singapore, this is ultimately a global issue. I'm fascinated by the fact that you guys are able to manage this company so globally, as co-founders of this company, as twin sisters, as we pointed out. What do you see from your perspective there? How is it being received there in Asia?
Actually, the technology has been around since the late 90s to the early 2000s, and the supply chain guys actually, which is predominantly here in Asia, has been early adopters as well. They do understand there's a lot more than, they want to say they are the last guys on the food chain, so they kind of understand the impact that it makes a lot earlier. So some of our earliest clients were all really factories who were trying to make this change a lot faster.
So what does it take?
And then
I'm sorry, forgive me. Go ahead.
No, and then introducing it, actually bringing it back to their clients and saying, here, this is a better way of working. Can we work this way? So this is why we have a strong base here in Asia, but at the same time in other continents that they're in. So there's a lot of stakeholders, and everybody's kind of dispersed in different continents.
So what will it take, Lena, let me put this to you. What will it take for the fashion industry? I mean, it's a huge industry. It's a global industry. You're working often in emerging economies in terms of trying to keep costs down and so on and so forth. What will it take for the industry to dramatically reduce its carbon footprint?
I think it's consumer. I think it's the awareness of consumer about what the industry is doing, the consumer having the choice to say, I will work and I will buy from a brand that I know is protecting the earth and creation and all of that. And I think it's the consumer choice. And in recent trends, we've seen because of this consumer that there's a huge awareness, even on, fair practices, labor costs. A lot of this has been driven awareness to the consumer, and they're putting the pressure on the brands and the retailers. I think that's a big part. The second part of it is the availability of technology that's enabling this to happen at a lot faster without going through huge effort. They can now do it very easily. So I think that's exciting.
Does this, your company, just very quickly, 20 seconds, Lena, does it make it possible for, manufacturers to kind of set up shop in their backyards more easily? Because I just think with the trade wars, whether we're finding people having to do that, just very quickly.
Yes, it definitely opens up the opportunity for made-to-measure, which means onshoring rather than offshoring. Definitely.
Very cool stuff.
All right. Really, really interesting. Thank you both so much. Lena and Sharon Lim. Lena here with us in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio, a co-founder, chief commercial officer of Browseware, and Sharon Lim up early in Singapore Saturday morning. She's the CEO of Browseware. Well, that's going to do it. What a week.
How much I like working with you guys.
I know. It's great to have you back.
Been on the road.
Terrific Friday show. Much more to come.
What's in business week
next
this weekend?
week? A really great cover story on the Arctic, protecting code. We talk a little bit about that. Some highlights from the 9/11 Memorial and Museum Summit on security. So check out our podcast feed, our weekend TV and radio shows as well. For Carol Massar, I'm Jason Kelly. You've been listening to Bloomberg Business Week.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen now to ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Stuck in traffic during the big game? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to your favorite NFL team on the go. No TV required. Even during rush hour, you won't miss a single touchdown. Listen to the NFL on TuneIn Premium today.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
This is the TuneIn Newsreel with top news stories from today.
To have put money into stocks in March of 2009. That's when the Luthold Group says the bull market began a little more than 10 years ago. Turn has been a whopping 468%. The vaping death toll has hit 42 in the U.S. with 2,100 vapors sick from e-cigarettes. The CDC is still trying to figure out what's causing the illness.
Hear breaking news as it happens with live around-the-clock coverage from CNBC on TuneIn.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard. Somebody stays on his feet and scores. Touchdown.
The top of the Big 12 is at stake. Reigning champion Oklahoma travels to Waco, Texas to take on the surprising undefeated Baylor Bears. The action kicks off this Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. Business is like a puzzle. Can you make a call given the data?
Which segments of Alphabet's business are most likely to come under scrutiny?
Get all the pieces.
They're getting mixed signals from governments.
He's failed to gain traction.
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Special report House impeachment inquiry. Republican Jim Jordan rejects the accusation of a shadow foreign policy in Ukraine.
There's been all this talk about the irregular channel. I think it's important that folks in the, quote, irregular channel were Senate-confirmed Ambassador Sondland, Senate-confirmed Ambassador Volker, and Senate-confirmed Secretary Perry. So you all want to make some of the witnesses want to make a big deal about that. And you had President's lawyer also part of that group.
Committee Chairman Adam Schiff.
Giuliani has made it abundantly clear he was in Ukraine on a mission for his client, for the president, to investigate the Bidens. And you were viewed as an obstacle that had to go, not just by Giuliani, but by the President of the United States. And if people had any doubt about it, they should do what the President asks. Read the transcript.
Roger Stone is facing a prison sentence for crimes including lying to Congress and witness tampering. He was convicted on all counts. He could get 20 years. I'm Mike Moss. President Trump tuned in for the impeachment inquiry today.
His press secretary said he wouldn't, but yes.
I thought it was a disgrace.
And he tweeted, including of the witness, everywhere Marie Yovanovitch went turned bad. She started off in Somalia. How did that go? And fast forward to Ukraine, where the new Ukrainian president spoke unfavorably about her in a second phone call with him. The president did not tweet any criticism, specifically of the two witnesses Wednesday. Democrats accused him of trying to intimidate Yovanovitch.
Well, I have the right to speak. I have freedom of speech, just as other people do. But they've taken away the Republicans' rights.
Bob Costantini, the White House.
Police are trying to figure out why a boy known as a regular kid opened fire outside a Southern California high school on his 16th birthday, killing 2 students and wounding more before turning the gun on himself. The teen was described as a quiet kid, a smart kid, and a Boy Scout. I'm Mike Moss.
So there's this guy named Jordan, and he's a healthy guy. He's a dad of 6, and he works as a guide in Alaska. But then he goes to the doctor, and he's diagnosed with cancer, stage 4. And here's the thing. He had switched from medical insurance to MediShare, which is a Christian healthcare sharing ministry. So the question for Jordan and his wife Jenny was, is this really going to work?
Our medical bills exceeded $160,000. MediShare members shared all our bills.
And it was about more than just the money, too. This is a real community.
MediShare is a family, a group of people that stick with you through the hardest times of your life. I just don't know how I could have done it without MediShare.
It's so worth looking into. There's a reason this is growing so fast. If you want to find out more, here's a number for you. 844-91-BIBLE. That's 844-91-BIBLE. 844-91-BIBLE.
Twitter's laying out its rules for political ads, banning most but allowing some. Correspondent John Stolas with more.
The social media platform's new policy bans political ads that reference a candidate, political party, government official, ballot measure, or legislative or judicial outcome. However, they are going to allow some issue ads to exist, such as ads related to climate change, gun control, and abortion. The groups behind those ads will not be allowed to target certain people based on their zip codes or stated political preferences. The targeting will have to be more broad, such as a user's state or province. Twitter's rules differ greatly from Facebook, who has said they won't disallow any political ads, even if they contain false information. I'm John Stolnis.
The CDC reports the U.S. is seeing more flu than is typical for this time of year. 3 states are seeing flu activity that is considered to be widespread. They are California, Louisiana, and Maryland. 7 states have regional activity. I'm Mike Moss.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters in New York, I'm Doug Krisner. The U.S. equity market rose to all-time highs on talk of the U.S. and China being close to locking down a partial trade deal. White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow said negotiations were coming down to short strokes. And Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross told Fox Business, the devil is always in the details, and we're down to the last details now. In spite of today's optimism, some do remain cautious. Liz Young is Director of Market Strategy at BNY Mellon Investment Management.
The risk here is that the market has priced in either some sort of deal or some sort of truce. If tariffs go on in December as planned, or God forbid they go up, that would be a huge negative surprise for the market. So there is some risk here that we continue to expect things to continue to go well. If they don't, if they pull back, then we have some trouble.
For the moment, the bet was on a deal. We had the Dow jumping 0.8% to a record high 28,004. The S&P was also up 0.8% to an all-time high 3,120, and the Nasdaq Composite rose 0.7% to a record close 8,540. Now, away from trade, the day's economic data was mixed. Retail sales rebounded slightly more than forecast last month, with a gain of 0.3%. That's month over month, largely due to gains in autos and gasoline. There were declines in both clothing and furniture. And at the same time, the Fed reported a drop in manufacturing output, excluding motor vehicles. Vehicle output alone was down 7.1%, but that was largely because of the strike against GM. Shares in Applied Materials rallied 9%. That was after the company boosted its sales forecast for equipment used to make computer chips. In the Treasury market, the U.S. 10-year was last quoted with a yield of 1.83%. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
This is Bloomberg Best.
Bloomberg Best is about the insight and the context that we get from our guests.
It's a great way to catch up on some of the stories you might have missed on the Bloomberg.
Stories you're not going to find in any other news organization. Bloomberg Best. Bloomberg's best stories of the week. Powered by 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries around the world.
From the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, I'm Ed Baxter on this edition of Bloomberg Best. The CEO of ABN AMRO Bank discusses cost concerns for his bank as it faces a money laundering probe.
We do expect more costs associated with ensuring we're fully compliant, but we also have running cost programs that will balance those out.
And the Pioneer Natural Resources CEO says the IEA is way too optimistic on U.S. shale.
All this and more coming up in the next hour of Bloomberg Best.
Shares of ABN AMRO Bank dropped after a third-quarter profit slip and uncertainty over a money laundering probe. The Dutch bank's vice chair and CFO, Clifford Abraham, spoke to Bloomberg's Alex Steele.
I just want to get a sense as to how you look at the cost implications of compliance, of criminal probe when it comes to the business.
Well, on costs in particular, we've seen in the numbers today that we've delivered overall good cost control despite increasing costs for detecting financial crime. We're putting more resources into know your client and transaction monitoring activities, and we've already absorbed much of that in our existing run rate cost base of $5 billion. We do expect more costs associated with ensuring we're fully compliant, but we also have running cost programs that will balance those out. So overall, I think costs are well controlled.
I mean, on the one hand, you have, customer due diligence, then you have compliance, and then you have a potential unknown fine. Is there a tipping point where you guys say, okay, now this is going to materially impact our cost-cutting program?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you're right to highlight the specific areas, but we're making necessary investments in compliance to know your customer. And we've disclosed those figures, and it's sort of low hundreds of millions. And at the same time, we're pursuing ongoing cost reduction on our overall cost base of $5 billion. So, we're balancing things, remaining cost effective in our core business, but putting the necessary resources in the important area of compliance.
Of course, the issue when you have some kind of probe is that you don't know how long that's going to go on for, and you don't know what the final price tag is really ultimately going to be. Can you give us any color into how long you're going to be remaining in the uncertain place in this investigation? Is it years?
Yeah, I think you're quite right. It is uncertain. I mean, I think all I can say is that it could be some time. I mean, the best way of getting an idea is looking at some of the other ranks around Europe, and experience says this can take really quite some time. So while the investigation is ongoing, we're doing all we can to ensure we're fully compliant with current and future rules and managing our business in an effective way, as you'd expect.
Does that also imply that I can look at other fines like ING and their nearly €1 billion fine and then apply it to potentially what ABN AMRO could see?
Yeah, look, I can't comment on any fine, if any, or the amount. You know, it is uncertain, and you know, we'll announce something when we know something. So, but I expect this process to take some time.
Were you surprised when you were notified? What was your reaction?
Well, I think it's clear that in the area of know your client, the banking sector as a whole has more to do. I mean, we've said quite clearly over the last year or two that we're working hard on compliance and know your customer. We've put more resources. We've taken quite meaningful provisions. So we've been clear. We've been ramping up activities. We take our gatekeeper role very seriously, and clearly, the investigation is something that's for the authorities to take decisions. So we're dealing with those decisions and doing what we can as a bank to ensure we're fully compliant with current rules.
It sounds like no, you weren't surprised?
No, I'm not going to comment on my personal emotions as you'd expect. But look, AML is a anti-money laundering is a fact of life in the banking sector right now, and we need to ensure we're fully compliant, and we're obviously fully cooperating with the authorities in their investigation.
So, Clifford, is it frustrating? I mean, we've just spent like 6 minutes of the interview, and all I've been able to ask you about is this probe, rather than, say, talking about your balance sheet. Do you feel like this kind of compliance, dealing with money laundering, is becoming more important as a crisis management than, say, dealing with balance sheet, dealing with negative rates, dealing with the macro environment?
Yeah, no, I'm not personally frustrated. I think it's a challenge. You know, I think it's a challenge for us, and it's a challenge for the sector. But I think as a banking CFO, we have responsibilities not just in delivering the bottom line, but ensuring that we do the right thing for society, and we take our gatekeeper role very seriously. And that's part and parcel of being a banking executive. So no frustrations. It's a challenge, and we're working hard at it.
When it comes to your bottom line, as you're dealing with the cost side, are there any levers left that you can pull easily to help lift your revenue?
Yeah, on costs and revenue. So what we're working hard on the cost side are our ongoing cost program. So we announced some time ago a cost program of €1 billion, and we've already delivered 850 million of that, so 150 further to go. We've also talked about our ambition to be more cost effective in IT. We're making good progress on that. So you'll see the benefits of those programs fall to the bottom line over the next year or two.
That's Clifford Abrahams, the Vice Chair and CFO of ABN AMRO Bank. Coming up, Scott Sheffield, the CEO of Pioneer Natural Resources. This is Bloomberg.
You can't be the only one who spends time examining angles.
This sort of mini deal, what would it look like?
Considering possibilities.
From a credit perspective, this is good news.
Planning for eventualities.
This company really has to get back on a growth track.
You're right. The others are here.
General Electric is such an interesting story.
Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern. On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks will spend the weekend in uncharted territory after a strong rally sent the Dow past 28,000 for the first time. Optimism that the U.S. and China are close to a partial trade deal fueled the advance. The Dow Jones Industrial Average jumped 223. The S&P 500 climbed 24. The Nasdaq Composite gained 62. John Ledger is staying put. Sources say the T-Mobile CEO isn't taking the top job at WeWork, contrary to speculation this week. Ledger has led a comeback at T-Mobile, culminating in a deal to merge with Sprint. That deal is still awaiting regulatory approval. The Supreme Court has agreed to hear Google's appeal in a multi-billion-dollar copyright case. Oracle says Google owes it nearly $9 billion.
for improperly using its copyrighted code in the Android operating system. A lower court ruled that Google violated Oracle's copyrights. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Listen, as a hiring manager, I've got to tell you, the best job candidate isn't always the typical candidate. Sometimes they're a grad of life.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Sometimes the best candidates aren't the ones you're used to.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Grads of...
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
The good snap, the ball put down, the right-footed kick is up, it's got the distance, it's accurate enough, it is good! The hand off to Carson, slithers through the crease between the guard and the center.
NFL fans, the action continues this weekend on TuneIn Premium. This Sunday, TuneIn has every NFL football game starting with the New York Jets at the Washington Redskins at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern, and closing out Sunday night with the Bears at the Los Angeles Rams at 8:20 p.m. Eastern. At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen now to ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
Interactive Broker Studio, this is Bloomberg Best. In its latest World Outlook report, the IEA says global oil demand will hit a plateau in just over a decade. Scott Sheffield, Pioneer Natural Resources CEO, is skeptical. He spoke with Bloomberg's Alex Steele.
So two things stood out to me from the IEA report. One is the peak oil demand conversation yet again happening. They see a 2025 material growth slowing. The other is they're quite optimistic on U.S. shale over the next decade. What do you see?
Yes, I see. There's several reports out there. I think 2030 is a little bit early. There's reports between 2030 and 2050 about peak oil demand. So